Fist, my hands steady. I'm ready to take this leap of faith, and my palms sweaty. I'm so afraid, in a state of panic. I'm a basket case. I step back, I'm hell bent. In this first attempt, gotta keep the pace. If God forgives, I'm ready to live this life full of unpromised days. So fuck it now, I'm all in. Hate motherfuckers wanna keep me down, and what goes around, it comes around. If heaven don't want me, then I'm hellbound. And inside my man, it's Southside land. Set fire to the past, walk through these ashes, fighting for the best. Step black for the shopping. Come and take a ride with me, motherfucker. Hop in. Welcome back, got a full clip. All aboard this crazy train. No money, no cars, no champagne, but I'm still alive and I can't complain. I'm trauma free, it's plain to see. Getting used to these growing pains. Success is certain, back to work, and goddamn, I can feel the change. Side of the coin, I'm paranoid. On the surface, I play it cool and I'm afraid of heights, but out of spite, you put me up on this pedestal. But I love you, and I can't deny. Drive myself crazy with the reasons why I can't come to terms with the word goodbye. And the reason is there's no reply. Spread some sunlight on my darkest days, darkest days. Show me the beauty when the color fades, color fades. Give me the courage, so I'm not afraid, so I'm not afraid. Spread some sunlight on my darkest days, darkest days. Spread some sunlight on my darkest days, darkest days. Show me the beauty when the color fades, color fades. Give me the courage, so I'm not afraid, so I'm not afraid.
What's up, everybody? I'm just backstage. We'll be ready, be right with you in just a minute. Thanks for joining us.
Same questions, ignore the facts. I can't turn back. God, please answer me. I'm sick of guessing. I clench my fist, it's gut-wrenching. Show me the way to the peace that I'm missing. I'm not religious, but remember this. I live my life with the best of intentions. Don't bullshit me. It's hard to believe, and everything around me is so diseased. So answer this: who the fuck are you, and who the fuck am I supposed to be? Should I listen to God and all His prophets? Listen to the greed that aligns my pocket. Listen to the hypocrites compared to the prophet. Listen to the pain that I clearly adopted. I can't move on when I'm stuck in the past. Hard to forget with a flag at half-mast. Hard to live in the mood so fast, and everything around me is made of glass. And I wanna let you know that I got the message. Stuck in the rut and I'm up for suggestions, but where the fuck is the light of my tunnel? So hand me the balance, I'm starting to stumble. They always say that the strong survive. How do we know too young to die? When happiness is in short supply, they hand you a pill and they tell you to try. I love you, and I can't deny. Drive myself crazy with the reasons why I can't come to terms with the word goodbye. And the reason is there's no reply. Spread some sunlight on my darkest days, darkest days. Show me the beauty when the color fades, color fades. Give me the courage, so I'm not afraid, so I'm not afraid. Spread some sunlight on my darkest days, darkest days. Spread some sunlight on my darkest days, darkest days. Show me the beauty when the color fades, color fades. Give me the courage, so I'm not afraid, so I'm not afraid. Spread some sunlight on my darkest days, darkest days.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. What's up, Zay?
Yeah. I want you to listen to me. Now pay attention. Welcome to my sideshow. Enjoy the free admission. The drama club is an
I'm trying to get our guests ready backstage. I can understand why they're trying to run them out of town now.
Tried to prevent these adventures such extent. I gave in. I was hell-bent. I still lost you in the end. I take 2 steps forward and I take 3 steps back. You can hear the contradiction. Maybe I really am a psychopath. The meaning in life, it's not a secret that you keep. It's days and weeks of feeling weak, no sleeping and repeat. Lose your mind and then you find it and get buried underneath the happiness, the pain, and you be getting no relief. What the fuck am I saying? All you faggots paying attention. God blessed you with ears, but you idiots never listen. I guess in what I'm saying, since there is no comprehension, my bleeding heart fell apart, let it be your intervention. Lean back, come on, get relaxed. Take another hit, headed for a relapse. Lose your mind with me. Lose your mind with me. Lean back, come on, get relaxed. Take another hit, headed for a relapse. Lose your mind with me. Lose your mind with me. I sit back and I reflect and I think about the past. It's set in stone, I have to view it through the glass. Made a lot of mistakes, I'm learning to adapt. I sit alone and overanalyze the aftermath. No straight and narrow, always seeking out a shortcut. And in the further back, see me playing catch up in the days of sin wonder. Are my days really numbered? Shit, I don't know, but I ain't getting any younger. Not made up, but I made up. I suggested you just keep a zip. Had to lose my brother to learn the value of relationships. I can't forget, I take myself a little trip down memory lane. It's as real as it gets. Sometimes I scare myself from what I really might do. I keep telling you, I've got a couple screws loose, but you refuse to believe the things that I say to you. That's okay, you can join me in the institute. Lean back, come on, get relaxed. Take another hit, headed for a relapse. Lose your mind with me. Lose your mind with me. Lean back, come on, get relaxed. Take another hit, headed for a relapse. Lose your mind with me. Lose your mind with me. I am back, I am better than ever. I survived a little storm and kept my own shit together. But inside my desperation, I was seeking desperate measures. There's a change up in the season, and I'm just a little weathered. There's a thin line between happiness and misery. Pursue the truth, life is not a fucking mystery. Get a clue, common sense is not your enemy. I was just like you, concerned with just the victory. I used to be a hothead, got a firm grip on my temper. I'm on that next level, balanced and I'm centered. Pain is dangerous, it seems to be my motivator. I'm the type to shoot first and ask the questions later. Can't tell me nothing, this motherfucker knows I tried. I sent him messages, 1,000 prayers with no reply. Can't call my nightmares with a motherfucking lullaby. So fire up that cigarette, pour a shot to multiply. Lean back, come on, get relaxed. Take another hit, headed for a relapse. Lose your mind with me. Lose your mind with me. Lean back.
All right, guys, I'm going to change the music around right quick and we'll get started. 2 minutes.
It's gonna be itchy.
Whoa, wait. Stop.
What?
I'll get my files.
What are you doing?
It's a...
Stop.
Hold on.
Fucking stop. Dude, come on.
It's
Seriously.
My mom's an alcoholic.
Oh, give me a... Oh, my God.
Damn it.
Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the bets, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the bets, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Round 3.
Down goes Nino. Please say it isn't so. Got him backed up on the ropes, trying to ram it down his throat. Now things are getting rocking, he was doing so well. It's all over, hands on his shoulders, they ringing his bell. You got Frog News Network doing no damn research. They be working copy on Cox that came first. 9th inning, second string, and they acting like they know hitters. Assholes throwing bullshit, sending runs to the shitter. All this nonsense on my conscience, it's hard to sleep at night. Who the fuck is in my window with this time of the night? These parasites, these leeches, with all their secret meetings, teaching all you fucking cretins about baby-eating heathens. Believing in reason with no meaning is bullshit. Will Bird motherfuckers out here busting the grifts.
Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the bets, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the bets, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet.
You don't have those guts because you're a pussy. You're a pussy wearing aviator glasses in your mother's basement, and I won't even give out your dime store hand.
All right, guys, here we go. Let's wait for some music. I don't want to start on the toilet sound. The toilet flushing. Let's wait on some music to come back around. Oh, that's a little better. Here we go.
Bag happens to see this particular show. You don't have the fork and balls to call out the people on this planet by name and tell them exactly who they are and tell them the rest of the world who they are. You don't have the fork and balls. You don't have the balls.
Welcome, everybody. I am Will Bard, and this is the Cold Beer Confessional. It's a special episode of the Cold Beer Confessional. We're on early. Thank you for coming out and joining us early. We've got a guest on tonight, but before I bring him on, make sure you like and share the video. We are on our backup channel on YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed here and share it out because not nearly as many people are going to see it today. We're over on Facebook too. If you're watching on Facebook, make sure you like, follow the page, start a watch party, something. And if you want to check out more about our guest, Kristopher Bilbrey with Perception is Reality, I've got his link in the description. But I'm not gonna waste any time. I'm gonna bring him in. He's got a story to tell, and it's a good one about how he got started in politics, how everything started for him, his podcast, everything else. So let's go ahead and bring him in and turn his mic on. Hey, what's up, Kristopher?
What up? How's it going?
It's going, man. It's going. I was telling everybody, well, you've been in and out of chat, and I think most people here probably listened to the interview that I did with you on your podcast. But I was trying to tell them that you had a pretty amazing story with how everything got started. And I'm just going to let you kind of run with your story. I want to hear it again. It's been a while since I heard it anyways. And I've got the videos pulled up if you want me to play any of those, the news stories, all that stuff. But you can go ahead and take it away, brother.
Yeah, all right. Hey, thank you for having me on. I'm glad to be here with you. Loved the interview we did the other day. I think it's done very well on all of my platforms, and I hope that with that interview we're able to help you out with your situation and spread
Sure.
that word. So I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, I think it's very interesting right now because of what you do. You're starting to see a lot of the grifters in like the last week or two. I started hearing them use the phrase "get out and do something." Don't be a keyboard warrior. Don't just be watching us. They're talking about going to school board meetings now. They're talking about going to city council and knowing who your mayor is. And that's funny that. I've only been hearing that in the last week. You know what I mean? They've never
Right.
said that before. And that is something that is, my bread and butter. I'm a political junkie. I talk about federal politics, national politics. I talk about state politics. But I am definitely, in the bag for local politics. Because that's where we do make the biggest difference. So many people bitch about Nancy Pelosi or Donald Trump or Biden, this or that, and they can name the Kardashian sisters, but they can't tell you who their city council members are. They don't know who their mayor is, things like that. And it's your local politics that affect you more than anything else, honestly, because it's like a feeder system. Where do you think the national people come from? They come from the state. They come from the state government, which come from local government. So, if we start putting in decent people on the local level, those people will work their way up, in time. So
Right.
that's kind of my whole deal. I started a podcast back in 2015. I started playing around with Facebook Live. And I've been politically active since I've been 8 or 9 years old. My grandparents were involved, and I was running around as a little kid back behind the local party, headquarters and knocking on doors and doing all of that thing. And so I've been involved with politics for quite some time. I'll be 40 at the 26th of this month. And so I've been involved for quite some time. However, I've been involved at the level that I currently am, which is what I'm doing full time in this currently since about 2016-ish, around there. The podcast in the way that it is now kicked off in 2019. But it all started because I was in a little disagreement with my local community of about 5,000. There's 5,000 of us that lived in a small community where I lived at the time. And, myself and some of my neighbors had some issues with what they were doing. And we had a problem.
Right. And it escalated pretty quickly, didn't it? And from the meeting that you guys went to?
Yeah. So essentially, in a nutshell, what happened, I ran for city council in 2015, and I ran as a Republican. I got beat in the primary, which is in May, and there was a candidate who was running as a Democrat, and I really supported this guy. I consider myself to be conservative, but I'm very politically fluid. I've supported Democrats, I've supported Republicans, all the way up from local to federal. And so I got beat in the primary, and I then decided to help this gentleman run in his campaign, and we got him elected. He was elected to the office of mayor as a young guy, and almost instantly he started. He got that taste of power, and it went to his head.
Mm.
And so
Yeah,
we
yeah.
started. I mean, just that kind of thing that you hear in small town politics. And so we started going to council meetings. At the time, there were 4 or 5 people in the room. They were all employed by the city. I was the only citizen that was going, and I thought,
Right.
hell, if I wasn't here, they'd go home and do this over the phone. You know what I mean? Nobody in the city knew what was going on. All these people are making these decisions behind the scenes, and nobody was paying attention. So I thought, I better start telling some people what's going on, or, whatever. So I started popping on social media and telling, hey, I went to the city council meeting tonight, and, the mayor's borrowing $800,000 for this facility that he's putting in this neighborhood that he's not told anybody, or just these real crazy off the wall things that would not happen in a bigger city because people are paying attention to some extent.
Yeah. When I got a few stories about, like, people don't believe small town government and how crazy some of the stuff is. Where I lived for a while, we had 2 brothers who were mayors of like 2 cities that sat right beside each other in the same county, and they were like transferring weird funds back and forth. They both owned businesses that got all kinds of like festivals and stuff through the city through them. And at one point, the first video I ever had explode, for me at least, on YouTube was about one of those guys ended up calling some lady a fat ass during a town meeting, and called some other dude a hooligan. And you think the lady that called the fat ass would have been upset, but the guy who got called the hooligan was ready to fight, and it's all recorded. I have the whole clip downloaded on the computer. The small town politics can get pretty scary, pretty sketchy sometimes, if people aren't keeping an eye on it.
It really can. And I'll tell you, I don't know, all of your listeners and viewers, if they haven't, there's a movie on Netflix called All the Queen's Horses. And it is about this small town clerk treasurer in Illinois who has been found guilty of what's considered the largest fraud per capita to take place on Earth. In
Wow.
the amount of 30 years, the amount of money that she bilked out of this community is absolutely just horrifying. They say per capita, she is guilty of the largest fraud perpetrated on the face of the planet. And she
Wow.
did this in her role as an elected, appointed city clerk treasurer of a town of 10,000 people. So it does get pretty crazy. The city that I'm born and raised in and live in currently now is Muncie, Indiana. And, we've had mayors arrested by the FBI. We have had a federal investigation currently going on in our community for 6 years, where up to 9 appointed or elected officials have been arrested and or indicted. It's currently still going on. We have had police officers that have been blown up in their cars here. All
That's
small
crazy.
politics. And
It sounds like you're talking about the mob, but you're talking about small town politics. And what's crazy is these people don't get involved at that level because they got kids in school and homework and job and sports, but they're not going to tell on themselves. Like some of the stuff, if you just show up at a meeting, they'll verbally tell you they're doing something shady. Like they'll announce it and then ask if anybody wants to talk about it. Like it's crazy, and no one shows up.
That's exactly correct. What I say is I was ahead of the curve just because my family was involved in it. But what generally happens is, you go to high school, and then you either go to college or you get a job, and you either move away or to someplace else where you don't know, and it takes you 20 years to feel comfortable there, or you
Right.
stay where you're at and you're just living life. And by the time you get to a point where you might start caring, you're 40 years old, and so everyone getting
Sure.
involved is getting involved at my age right now, and they're going through the, paying their dues and all of that stuff, and go, figuring out what's going on. Well, I've been immersed in this for now, 25 years. So, I've kind of, I'm not better than anybody else. I'm not smarter than anybody else. Just if you've been doing something for 25 years, you have an understanding of it. And what
Right.
I always say is it's the people who, are off living their life, and they're putting their kids through school, and they're working, until their neighbor pees on their yard, the kid pees on the yard, or they put up a fence 5 feet on their property. They don't give a damn. And it's then that they go to the city council, and they're like, they have some kind of complaint, and they're sitting there listening to bitch at the end, and they find out, whoa, wait a minute, this is what's going on here? This amount of money's going to this guy. This guy gets this bid again. And so it's kind of that whole thing. Well, I was in 2010, I moved 30 miles east of where I currently live, and I'm in this small community, smaller than what I am now. And so, speed forward to 2015, 2016, I ran for office. I helped get this guy in office. He is doing things that don't seem right. He's taking liberties that he doesn't have. Your city council has a certain amount of power, and your mayor has power, and and they're the checks and balances on each other. Okay. And so,
yeah, and it's all laid out, but rules around it. Like the city charter is usually where you can find most of that stuff.
Sure, but it's everything's just a step down from what it is. Your federal government, you've got the checks and balances. You've got the president, is the executive, and Congress is your legislative body, and the judicial, and that breaks down to the state level and to the city level. And so, the state level, you have your your state general assemblies that make the laws up, and those govern what the mayor does versus what the council does. And then you have ordinances and resolutions in your community, and that sets aside the power. Well, I realized that there was some major oversteps. So I start broadcasting this, and within pretty quick time, our council meetings went from being 4 or 5 people in the meetings to being standing room only events. And if the video you've got on screen right now, if you want to go ahead and play that,
sure.
No,
I'm going to hold on. I'm going to adjust it for the stream some so they can see all the quadrants. Give me just a second, and then I'll play it. And I don't know if this video has audio, but a video with audio, you should be able to hear it too on your end.
Okay.
Here you go.
Earlier, and I am, the location is.
What you're hearing here is a city council member, a meeting.
Funding has been a problem.
This is security footage, right? From the meeting.
Yeah, which I requested through a records request.
$44,000 is what we as a city is going to owe. You take that $4,400 or $440,000, divide it by 2,100 sewage bills we send out a year, Vic? Yes. Or a month. That's
So
what is? Do you remember what they're discussing right here? What the topic is?
They're discussing whether or not they're going to pay $1.1 million for a treatment facility program that's going to be housed in the community. Okay. Now, when you say there's a drug treatment facility program, hell, let's all raise our hands. We're all in favor of that. Okay. I am. Let's put one on every block. Okay. I'm fine with that. The problem, though, is you have to scratch a little below the surface, because the reason that this was happening was the mayor wanted to take a run for state representative in the next election, and he saw this as his way to help get state funding for that race and to help get those people in his favor. Because what was happening was we were using $1.1 million of Winchester, Indiana city money for this treatment facility, and it was not going to be helping anyone from Winchester. It was going to be helping people from Ohio. It was going to be helping people from southern Indiana. And all I was saying was simply, they need to be kicking money into this. We shouldn't be footing the whole bill by ourselves.
Right. Make it a regional project.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so that was getting under his skin, and I wasn't just shouting and going crazy. I was doing it, I was being polite about it. I was filing record requests. People don't know that what they won't say in meetings, they've normally emailed or they've normally wrote letters. And if you go up to your clerk's office and you hand a little piece of paper that you've scribbled, hey, I want these records, and you hand them over, they got to give them to you.
Right.
And a lot of times, if they don't give them to you, it's a problem. And so you're able to catch these people, doing these things. So I was able to lay out my case, in pretty black and white. And it got to the point where, the elected officials were pretty pissed about what was going on. And we've got a full audience here. And
yeah, you can you see them sitting here. It's pretty packed, and you're right here in the middle somewhere, right, with your wife.
Yeah, so I'm at the we're in the back row, but right there, kind of. If you see the lady in the blue, take your cursor to the left there. Yeah, we're just right back there, right back behind them, right there. And so what had happened was we're in a public building, in a public meeting, talking to publicly elected officials, and they had just got done telling us they were not going. We had sat in here and listened to these people talk for 2 hours, and they were then not going to let us address the audience. They said, we're not going to listen to public concern. Well, my wife, my ex-wife, she's my ex-wife now, she was a little mouthy, and she decided that she was not okay with that,
I think all wives are like that. Mine's been getting a little big for her britches, is what we say around here.
Yeah, it seems to happen, So she decided she was going to ask this, this board a question from her seat. Now you can go ahead and play it again.
Sure.
A year for 6 years. That comes down to $35 a year per household that at the most we would ask, whether your value of your house is $20,000 or $200,000. If you divide that out equally amongst the citizens of just Winchester, the city of Winchester, that's only $35,000 or $35 a year.
But we're not going to be putting on anybody's tax rate.
That we're not putting on anybody. But you stop and think about that. $35 a year. How much would you pay to save somebody's life? Possibly say, we're not taking questions from the audience, so please don't raise your hand.
They're trying to get pity, and then they immediately said, we're not taking any questions from the audience.
Yeah. So pause that here. So what happens is, she says, so how much would you pay to save someone's life? And this woman behind us, who I'm dear friends with, she's ran for office, before, and she's very involved in the community. She stands up and stomps. I mean, like, I can feel like us shake. She says, "Save ours." She has an outburst. She yells. She says, "Save our lives." What she meant was, there was things that she could do. Okay, so that kind of riled everybody up. My wife raises her hand to ask a question. Like she thought this was like the third grade or something. Ex-wife. I need to continue to throw that in there. My ex-wife raises her hand to ask a question. And that's when she says, the councilwoman says, we're not taking questions from the audience. So then you will hear my ex-wife and her have some back and forth. Go ahead and play that now.
Yeah, stick with us, chat. It ends up, the police get involved and everything. Stick with us for just a second. Watch this.
Let me finish.
So now,
Let me finish.
can't disrupt a legal facility.
The location is a problem.
Excuse me.
We're not taking things from the audience.
Just a statement.
Go ahead, Tom.
Was that you that said this is just a statement, or it sounded like your voice?
I said it wasn't a question. It was just a statement.
Okay.
And so yeah.
Now you're out of order. Let's go.
I'm just saying, $35 a year is the most that we would ask
Was that you exiting right there with the guy starting to follow you out?
Yeah. So what happened? If pause this real quick.
Yeah, it's paused.
Is at that moment, my ex-wife is, having some mouthing this woman, and one of the counselors say, "No, you're out of order." And my ex-wife says, "All right, I'm leaving." She leaves, and I stand up. And when I stand up, I head towards the door, and I turn around and I say this. Oh crap! Hold on. I tried to play it there. It wouldn't let me play it because of what's happening.
Oh, you got the audio for it.
I messed that up. I stand up at the door and I turn around and I say, "You're out of order. You guys are a joke." All right. Now I don't know how long that just took me to say it. And that's about the loudest I said it too. "You guys are out of order. You're a joke." And at that time,
yeah, well, when you first sent me this, you told me that all I said was "you're out of order, this is a joke," or "you guys are a joke," and I had to listen over and over again to even pick up "joke," and that was about all I heard on the video. So it couldn't have been like you were yelling or screaming or something crazy. It had to be just said in passing kind of deal.
It wasn't disrupting the meeting. I was exiting the building at this time. You know what I mean? It was over. So I think that we recounted that we look at it on a timer, and it took like 0.6 seconds for me to say this.
Right.
And as I'm outside the building now, you can see in the top left where it says Cam 6. This is one.
That's where you're going to come out.
No, that's where an attorney's at. I'm going to come back out over his shoulder. You're going to see us leave, and then you're going to see some people follow. So go ahead and play that now.
Okay.
Of anybody to pay, but we're not even asking them.
Okay. Now you see that's a great presentation. I say we vote for this.
That was you stopped right there, right? They come up and kind of stopped you.
So there goes my ex-wife. There goes my mother. And then the police officer has just grabbed me here. And he's in the process of throwing me into the wall.
Yeah, let me finish. Let me get you up against the wall, and then.
Okay.
And we do still have.
So he's got you up in the wall here, and like it looks like maybe one arm behind your back and talking to you over your shoulder, I think.
Yeah. And now my ex-wife didn't know that this was happening. She's out the building. My mother has came back. You can see my mother here.
Right.
And she's come back in, and the police officer saying, "You're under arrest for disorderly conduct." And now listen, at this time, I need to tell everybody, I have been a police officer. I was in law enforcement for many years, and I have made multiple arrests. And 90% of the public, if you say, "Hey, you from across the football field, you're under arrest," they're going to stop. They're going to turn around and put their hands behind their back. Very few people do you need to go hands-on with and slam into a wall or whatever, okay? I don't know that I've ever arrested anybody in a public building, in a public meeting for speaking, words.
Anytime a cop's ever even spoke to anybody, that I've never even seen somebody, except for one time when I was in high school, I've never even seen somebody run. Like if a cop just says something, especially in a small town, most people are like, "Huh? What? You need me?" Or you know what I mean? Like there's no chase or pursuit or grabbing or throwing of any person.
Right. So now what's going on here is there's a few of these people that came with me, but there's like 2 or 3 police officers out here, making sure that I'm not going to get crazy, I guess. I have a cell phone on me that's recording all of this, and he's putting me in handcuffs, and he's taking me to jail, and we go to jail. He takes me to jail. On our way to jail, he says, "Hey, I basically tells me that he didn't want to do this. He was told ahead of time that, he needed to do this. If I got out of line, if I said anything, I was going to jail this night. Before this day even occurred, I was going to jail.
Right. It was premeditated almost at this point. Didn't he say something like, didn't you all talk about how this wasn't something that could be done, like this won't stick or this won't work, or didn't something like that happen?
Yeah. So at the jail, he's getting me out of jail, and I'm thinking right here, oh man, these people have just screwed the pooch on this, because I am
Right.
going to be a martyr for this. This is going to be, amazing. And so we get out at the jail, and he says, I said, what? So what's? I wasn't concerned about bonding out. I wanted to spend the night. I wanted.
Yeah,
to
you
get
wanted
in.
to stay, right? You didn't want anybody to get you out.
I wanted to get in to make my phone call, to call and tell my wife and my mother, don't come get me. Let me be, I'll be RO'd in the morning. I want to stay. I want to stay here. So
For sure. It's like the people who purposely get arrested or go on a hunger strike or something. It elevates your story. It brings it to the forefront.
absolutely. So, I'm asking him about, hey, when can I get in and get my phone call? And he's telling me, don't worry, you can bond out. This isn't going to be anything. I know the prosecutor's office isn't going to do anything with this anyways. And right when he says that, I'm like, oh shit, I've got this on recording. He's just said that he's aware the prosecutor's office will not file charges on this. As a police officer, you don't ever want to arrest somebody without a warrant or probable cause. And
That's a big screw up. If you know it can't be prosecuted, you can't. That would be like me just arresting my neighbor just to delay him. You know what I mean?
Right.
You can't run around doing that shit.
Right. So, I'm thinking the whole time, I go in here and they're like, well, what are you here for? And the cop says disorderly conduct, and they're like, oh, you drunk? And I'm like, no, I don't really drink. They're like, oh, were you fighting? I'm like, no. And they're like, well, what were you doing? I was like, I was at the city council meeting.
I was at the library studying for an exam tomorrow morning.
I was praying. So I go in there, and these people are like laughing and kind of joking with me. Now, this police officer that arrests me, he's not just a police officer. He's the police chief of the department. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So he leaves.
Oh, he's the chief. He's the chief of for this town, right? What was this place called? Remington? Is that what you said?
Winchester.
Oh, I knew it was a weapon.
Yeah. Winchester.
So he's the police chief, and he's arrested you without any type of. He knows it won't stick. It's just to inconvenience you.
Yes.
And make an example, kind of.
What they wanted to do was make me look like I was out of control and I was this loudmouth and no one should be listening to me.
Right.
Because I was gaining, a pretty big following. The prosecutor of the county was not at this meeting, but he was on my side in our fight. He happened to also agree that what the mayor was doing was wrong. Matter of fact, he stood up in a meeting and he said, I feel like what the mayor has done here could possibly be fraud, and I'm going to have to now look at this from my professional, capacity as the elected prosecutor. So he had to stop coming to meetings because he was now investigating what was going on here.
Right,
so
right.
It was, it wasn't like I was just out on a limb, completely batshit crazy here. There was definitely issues going on here. Sure. So I'm thinking at this time, like, oh God, the elected prosecutor is going to get this. We were friends, I'm like, he's going to have to file for a special prosecutor to review this. There's no way this is going to be charged. The people at the jail were like trying to get me processed. They thought people were coming to get me, which unbeknownst to me, they were. I didn't want to be bailed out. My ex-wife and mother got there to bail me out because it was only 5 minutes down the street.
Right. They came and me. My wife would do the same thing. She'd be panicking and crying, and we got pulled over once, and she cried because I got an attitude with the cop. When I watched this, I don't know if it's true or not, but when I personally watched this, it almost looked like he was trying to I don't know, like show his ass, like he was trying to put pressure on you, like he was making it uncomfortable is what it appeared like to me. Like it wasn't a simple, okay, this guy said something and I got to arrest him. It was like, I'm going to prove a point, and to me, I feel like that's what it was. But
yeah, because what happens is when he grabs me, like he doesn't he don't fling me into the wall. But he pushes me into the wall, and then with my arm torqued behind my back, he's like kicking it up from my back a little bit, putting pressure on my shoulder and
Right.
just out of control. There was no reason to do what he did. You know what I mean? Like he didn't kick my ass. He didn't, break my arm.
Right, but it's uncomfortable. It's an arm bar or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I'm thinking, all right, this is pretty wild. So I'm sitting here waiting for them. All I want at this point is to get my mug shot.
Right.
I'm like, give me a mug shot. That's all I want. They weren't going to do it. I had to ask them. I was like, I'm not leaving the jail until I get a mug shot. It was insane. So
that's in the thumbnail, by the way, chat. If you see the thumbnail for the video, that's him in the mugshot.
Yeah. So they take my picture, and they paid the $250 bail or whatever, and I leave, and I was pissed. When I left, I was pissed that they had bailed me out, And so my thing is, I'm like, I know that this is not going to go anywhere, but I hired an attorney just in case I had to fight this disorderly conduct thing. I never thought about suing these people, okay, or anything like that. So I did my thing, and the attorney advised me I needed to talk to a federal attorney that handled federal lawsuits, that I might have a lawsuit, and that I needed to fight this because it was a First Amendment rights violation and things like that. So I issued a records request. They took me to jail at 7:45. The meeting ended at 8, and I know because of surveillance footage, they stayed around up there for about an hour after the meeting, like talking and letting people file out.
Right.
I was actually bailed out of jail and at home typing up a records request before they had left the building that night.
Right.
And so I send the records request in telling them that I want copies of all the police reports. I want copies of all communications. I want copies of all the emails of the council and the mayor beforehand. I want this surveillance, footage. And they immediately deny all of that because there's an investigation going on. So a month goes by, and the prosecutor's office, says they're not going to charge. They're not going to charge me with anything. They file a memorandum. That normally doesn't happen. If the prosecutor's office doesn't pick up charges, they normally just don't pick up charges, and it just lingers. Well, in this case, the prosecutor's office filed a 4-page memorandum. And this wasn't my friend. This was a special prosecutor that I did not know from another county.
Mm-hmm.
He filed this stating that the arrest was unlawful and unjust because I was arrested while using my constitutionally protected political free speech.
Which is strange. Usually, I don't know if you know this, chat, but usually they either do charges right away or they don't do charges, but they usually never say no charges. You're like in limbo. Like they can still bring you up on charges. A lot of people get arrested, and then if there's no charges, there's still a time frame. I don't know what it is, but there's still a time frame where they can accept to pursue charges. You're just like in limbo. You don't know. To come out with something that says no charges because this, and this is out of the ordinary, at least, right?
Yeah, I've got it framed.
Right.
It was filed with the court. In Indiana, they've got 5 years to file a misdemeanor, 2 years to file a misdemeanor and 5 years to file a felony.
That's crazy. I know yours didn't end up that way, but just to think about that, you could be in limbo for 2 to 5 years, thinking, "Man, I wonder if they're going to charge me or not." I don't know. The whole thing's crazy to me.
It is. It is definitely crazy. So when the prosecutor says there's no charges, I then submit another records request to the police department. And I also submit one to the prosecutor's office.
Real quick, do you think that the prosecutor did that because he knew it was bad and he wanted to distance himself from it? Like he didn't.
Yes.
Okay, I was
without a shadow of a doubt.
He's like, this could end up bad, and I don't want to be part of it. So we're not charging. This is protected speech. Blah blah blah. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what happened. That's the reason the Randolph County, Indiana prosecutor requested a special prosecutor because he was connected to this. So he wanted to distance himself
Right.
And the special prosecutor from a couple counties away who reviewed it, he said, because I talked to him after the fact, and there was definitely, in their mind going to be a lawsuit. I didn't know that at the time, but these people being attorneys, they're like, yeah, there's going to be a lawsuit here.
Yeah, or at least a great potential. If he doesn't do a lawsuit, he's dumb, and we're going to keep our mouth shut just to see if he's dumb.
Right.
I understand.
So I filed a records request with the city, and I filed a records request with the prosecutor's office. And the days that I picked both of these up, it was an amazing day, because these files, let's just say they contained 50 pages each.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the prosecutor's file contained 50 pages. The city of Winchester's file contained 49 pages. There was a discrepancy here, and the reason that there was a discrepancy is because the prosecutor's page contained an email that the city of Winchester's did not contain. And the email was from our local neighborhood police chief.
Right.
About 12 hours after the arrest, he had sent an email to the prosecutor's office, to the investigator, saying, I'm sending up paperwork on an arrest I made last night, Kristopher Bilbrey. Please do whatever you can to make sure that charges are filed on this case.
Right.
Because this small disorderly conduct already has news agencies calling, asking questions, and this is going to be a headache for us. Because if the prosecutor's office would have filed charges, it would have validated the police. Now, I could have still sued.
Yeah, but it would have validated his arrest and said, the probable cause or whatever.
Yeah, and so it would have just gave him a little bit extra protection. So
wow.
He sent that email, and then he deletes the email from his computer, which is all in of itself.
Right. You can't delete public records like that when you're holding office. Like that belongs to whoever elected you or whoever you work for.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the prosecutor's office did the right thing. They printed the email off and they stuck it in their file. And the police chief deleted it off and went home and went to bed. And
right.
So basically, when I had this, we ended up suing, and it went on for a couple of years. We settled out of court. They did not want to go to court, which I can completely understand. And we settled for a decent sized settlement, and it allowed me to further my podcasting career.
Gave you more reach. You already had the reach, and you got more from it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was able to, buy some equipment that I needed, and I took a picture of how I have my studio set up, and I sent it to Winchester and told them thank you, and I put them all as honorary executive producers.
The Winchester Police Department and city government helped produce the show.
yeah, absolutely. And that was on advice of my attorney at the time.
Right.
I'll tell you. And so, then it was my job at this point to all right, we got to get rid of these people. So we got rid of the mayor. He did run for higher state office like we knew he would. Mm-hmm. And we got him beat from that. He decided not to run for re-election for mayor. So we got rid of him. We got rid of a couple of the city council members. The police chief was left. The fire chief who was involved with this left. I mean, so they basically
cleaned it out.
Took off. And
I have a question for you, since you're another small town person. Here locally, I'm not going to get into a whole story, but we had a super corrupt sheriff, and basically everybody could see it. But we have such a strong, evangelical, I go to church with this guy, or he goes to this church, he's good people, blah blah blah. When our sheriff was brought up on charges of he was giving away gifts that were confiscated firearms, the evidence was going missing, he was using prisoners to clear his own personal property, and a bunch of stuff that was almost easily could have been proved. We had people coming out on social media saying, I don't know why the devil always goes after a good man. Does that type of stuff happen where you're from, or is that just me?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's I have two producers on the podcast. Niles and Kate Thornburg, and they call these people the beautiful people.
Right.
They're the I'm a believer. I don't know that I'm sitting in church every Sunday, but I'm a believer.
Right.
But these are the people who are going and dropping the big checks in the tithing plate, and they're making the smiles, and they're doing the rounds on Sunday morning,
That's
and
right.
so absolutely
Like two deacons at a liquor store. They both act like they're suddenly blind. They can't see each other. They're looking all over the place, never run into each other. It's strange.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, that's exactly right, and that's where the title "Perception is Reality" came from, because I contacted the mayor who was involved with all of this, and was talking to him about his run for state representative, and I was talking about what a horrible person he was, and I wanted him to come on my podcast and tell me why I should think differently. And I said, he told me no, and he was a dickhead about it, and I said, well, when you're not in office in 6 months, I'm going to remind you of this. And he said,
Right.
that was my perception. And I said, well, oftentimes in politics, perception is reality. And
Right.
he told me that my perception of reality was wrong. And I said, well, we will see. And so that's where the idea for the show came from.
That's a good backstory.
That's because I hate it now. I wanted to call the show "All Politics is Local," which is a Tip O'Neill quote, and that amazingly wasn't out there.
Right.
But I got stuck with "Perception is Reality," and I guess it's grown on me.
Right.
But from this, I grew, because what happened is, in pretty short order, I had some people from another community reach out to me and say, hey, we're having some issues. Would you care to help us through this? And so I went to their community and I spoke out, and it grew it, and it just kind of grew from there, because then I started, I go to meetings, in a pretty large area around where I live.
Sure.
And at first people are like, you don't live here. What are you doing? And I'm like, I could drive to Seattle and stand up and talk at a council meeting if I wanted,
Right.
it doesn't matter what, what you're doing. But I wasn't sticking my nose in other places. It wasn't like I was trying to drum up trouble. What I was doing was I was trying to teach the citizens the importance of being able to stand up and say, hey, I don't like what you're doing, and I'm not okay with this. And, it has really changed politics in this region. And then, through that, the podcast grew. And now, I've got, the podcast streams on all major podcast hosting sites. And while I talk about local stories that, affect me, I do it from an angle that people from Colorado could listen, or people from Tennessee
Sure.
could listen, so that
I listen to it. Like, I always have it. I do the same thing with YouTube. When I'm working on something, I always have it like a background playing, so it doesn't bother me that it's a podcast, because I usually don't watch the videos anyways. I just have it playing in the background. Now, I usually speed it up too, so I can get more in before I have to do a show or whatever. But I listen to it all the time now. It's actually a really good show. The link's in the description if you guys want to check it out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's pretty interesting. I know. I don't know how. I know we've been on here a while. When are you supposed to start your real show?
Oh, no. I slotted over 2 hours for this. We've been on here for 50 minutes. So if you want to keep going into like the next branch of the story, by all means, I think that's even more interesting.
Yeah, it is. So I basically, it's kind of like, remember the show Quantum Leap? Where,
Yeah. Yeah.
Or I kind of look at it like the old Incredible Hulk.
Real quick. I'm 10 years younger, so I remember reruns of Quantum Leap, but I don't know that I remember seeing it live at any point.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So, the old Incredible Hulk or the Kung Fu, where every week they would travel around solving a different mystery. That's kind of like what I do.
Right.
So I figured that my season in Winchester had come to an end. So, I did what most people do. I get a divorce and I moved home.
Right. I'm in the middle of the same thing. My wife just don't know it yet.
Oh, I love it. So that's hilarious. In 2019, I moved back to my my home community of Muncie, which is kind of a bigger play field. It had a little bit more dirty politics, and it needed some cleaning up. So I figured, I'll go home and see what I can do there. And so one of the first things I do is try to use my platform to interview candidates who are running for a city municipal election at the time.
Sure.
And I interviewed most of them, and from there, I picked the candidates that I supported and whatnot. And pretty early on, there was a female city council member who was currently holding office, who started talking to me, and I could tell wanted to use my platform to further her agenda.
Right.
And so I could tell that there were some issues there pretty early on. And, so I at first bought into it and then quickly, determined that there were issues here. So I came out against her pretty hard right as she won the election. And then I thought, oh no, we cannot have her win the general, which is in November. So I had a couple months that I needed to, work on this. Well, a couple of her opponents who were in the race against her had also, come to the conclusion that, maybe that she really needed to be unelected from office.
Right.
And so, we start speaking out, and they're coming on my podcast, and I'm talking to them. And in pretty quick order from doing this, I'm starting to get like text messages, anonymous text messages, telling me that I need to, stop doing what I'm doing, and that I need to, I go back to Winchester. I was born and raised in Muncie, but all of a sudden I'm not from Muncie. I needed to go back to Winchester and shut up.
Were they more like real vague, or did like as far as threats, or did they get more like you need to get out of here? So they got worse.
At first they were vague. It was just like, you shouldn't be doing what you're doing. You need to shut up. And then, and they were coming from like internet generated numbers.
Yeah.
Then they got to the point where they were saying like, you're nothing but a 5'9", 232 and a half pound fat ass that's in your mother's basement,
Oh no. Was it Scott McKay?
What? Yeah.
Was it Scott McKay threatening you?
Strange. It's really interesting because I was like, I posted this on Facebook, and I used to call it fan mail or hate mail of the day, where I'd post a nice something I got or something bad, whatever.
Right.
And I was like, I don't know how to call this because, I'm not 232 pounds, like that's, I thank you. You can tell from this video you got up, I was a little heavier back then, so I have
Right.
lost weight now, but, I was like, well, thank you. Well, that's a really strange number to say, 232 pounds.
Yeah, very specific. And they had your height right too, right?
Yeah. Well, it did not have my height. It had me at 5'9". I've not been 5'9" since I've been like 19, 18. I've grown since then. But I got to thinking that I know I've seen that. So I pull out my driver's license, and sure enough, I've never updated my driver's license from when I was like 19, the height or weight on it.
Right.
And the height was 5'9", 232 pounds. Instantly, I'm like, oh, well, somebody's been running my information.
So the accusation they made when they were talking shit was oddly specific, and it matched your driver's license perfect, and it's not your current height or weight. It was just, but it matched your driver's license from when you were 19.
Right. Yeah.
Real quick, chat just said 233232. The delta of that is 17. Skull and bones, skull and bones. I think they're calling you out.
Oh, you found me. Surprise.
Oh.
And I am selling this water. So
This is freedom water. You piss red, white, and blue when you drink it.
yes, Patriots.
Oh, what a trip! There was a meme on Facebook. It says, "My doctor said it's abnormal and possibly pancreatic cancer because I pissed red, white, and blue, and I told him to shut his commie mouth." Oh. Anyways, back to the specific height and weight. They had been running your driver's license, correct?
Yes. So what happened was, I thought that, that seemed odd. So I thought what I would do would file a records request, not that hard. I've done them all over in various communities. And
is that, Chris, is that covered under, is that a local ordinance you're getting it under, or is it under FOIA? Is FOIA cover local requests as well, like the Freedom of Information Act, or is that just federal stuff? Does everybody has that ability, right? If yes. I live in Tennessee or Hawaii or whatever?
Yes. So what happens is people, and I've seen them saying it here, people mistakenly call it FOIA request.
Right.
It is federally. The Freedom of Information Act is a term used for federal government.
Right.
Here in the state of Indiana, it's called APRA. And it's a state thing. It's called Access to Public Records Request. And
right.
So we have a public access counselor that is appointed by the governor, and he's an attorney, and it's his office's responsibility to determine what it determines what's public record or what's not. They determine
it's probably not a matter of national security, but some stuff is like private and not for the public record, and some stuff is. I've had to do it too, but I know that our state was different. FOIA is the federal part of it, and then like our state of Tennessee, even our local government has something in their city charter, which they're covered under the state too, but to where we can do the same things. But yeah, I understand.
Absolutely. So real quick, someone said, you can look. I mean, this is in local papers and such, the information. If you go to your next poll, if you pull up your next video, this is
police department slapped with notice of violation, or do you want the federal lawsuit issued against Muncie?
The first one, the violation.
Okay.
So you can play that if you want.
Yeah, he made the news.
Police officers are put on notice as Call 6 Investigates gets to the bottom of the problem.
The Muncie Police Department received a notice of violation after a state review found officers had used their equipment to inappropriately run the name of a man who was not a crime suspect, but a critic of city government.
This has silenced people. I absolutely have spoke to people who've said, I'm out.
Clearly you're a clone.
I'm no longer willing to be involved because, I'm afraid.
Chris Bilbrey is a podcaster who can be a thorn in the side of Muncie politicians.
Perception is reality.
And I really want to get into tonight's episode. It's another big one.
His program, Perception is
This is the best advertisement you could have paid for.
Outrage
free.
Muncie city government, which is currently in the shadow of an FBI investigation. Bilbrey says after requesting documents about the city council, he began receiving several bizarre texts, which included details on his driver's license. He filed
This is crazy, dude.
with Indiana State Police, questioning whether Muncie police officers had misused their computers to run a search on him on a system called IDAX.
You can't run, you're not supposed to be running yourself. You can't call me, can you run this John Doe and tell me if he's got anything? That's against the law. I can't run Donald Trump. If I run Donald Trump, that's a hit.
A state police review deemed that the Muncie Police Department was in violation of misusing the law enforcement record system.
There's basically a button.
We sat down with Muncie Police Chief.
There's a button.
I think in these couple situations, they were trying to get information on someone that in that situation they shouldn't have been. There was no crime involved.
At least he stood up for you. I mean, I guess he didn't really have a choice, did he? It's pretty clear cut.
Chief sent out a memo to all officers on July the 24th. He could not share that internal memo with us, but he says it details the do's and the don'ts so that this does not happen again.
We certainly realize that we were wrong, and we think we've fixed this issue and should never happen again.
Are we on the side of the line that says this is Muncie, Indiana, America, and we can speak out how we want, whichever way we want, and should be left to do so unmolested, unbullied? Or is this the new norm, that you're going to be pulled over, you're going to be targeted, you're going to be harassed?
Just to be 100% clear, this was because you had a podcast and said, hey, I'm endorsing this person. I don't think this is a good choice. Like, we need to make a change. Right? You're just not supporting this female candidate is what all this, the threats and the running and everything come down from?
That's what our contention was, because it wasn't just out here happening to random people. It happened to me. It happened to two other former candidates, and it happened of her candidates, and it happened to a campaign chair.
Right. So, but at the time, you weren't screaming nothing like "defund the police" or let's start communism in Winchester or Muncie or whatever. It was pretty clear what it was about. How did I don't want to mess up your story, so this isn't in the timeline. How did you guys? Tell us how the part where you found more people that this was also happening to. How did that come about? Did people come to you? Did the news story break it? What happened from that?
So what happened was, at this time, that news story happened in like July, and so by that time we knew that there were other people who were involved, and what had happened was these other candidates who had dealings with this same person decided to do a records request themselves, and so they found out the same information, because the local police run all this information through the state police. So the state police are the custodians of this information, and so the records requests go through the state police, and they're like,
right.
Basically what can happen is you can look so much information up as a police officer. If I'm just driving down the road as a cop and I see you, I'm like, hey, there's Will Byrd. I can run your information. If I know there's certain information I can run, there's certain information I can't. And
sure. Well, here in Tennessee, the state troopers actually have cameras on top of their car, and while they're driving around, they pull tags and who the registered owner is, if it has like a bolo, or if it's stolen or doesn't match the car color. It does a very limited amount of information, but almost automatically. Like, they're just driving around, it'll send them an alert if there's like a stolen vehicle or something don't add up.
Right, and so that is, the driver's license, the vehicle information, all that stuff is legitimate, but there's some stuff that they cannot.
Yeah.
And so that is they make the determination what is okay and what's not. So it's not me saying it wasn't okay. It was the state police saying this is not okay. Once the state police looked, they said this is not okay. The gentleman, the cop that you just heard there, was the chief of police. You just heard him say this is not okay. They retrained their department. It wasn't me saying it wasn't okay. It was me asking, did I get searched? And they said yes, and it's not okay.
Someone just said in the chat that there were local police officers doing this to a reporter, I guess, who may have been giving them a hard time or something, and they pulled her information, or it doesn't say he or she, their information over 240 times, and she settled out of court for a few $1 million. So
yeah,
that's crazy.
It happened, and it happened in Florida, where they were doing this. They were doing this to a police officer, where they were actually, there was like local, I think maybe Miami police officers who were stalking a state trooper, a female state trooper.
Wow.
And they were polling her, and it caused a whole bunch of issues, and it's happened a couple times.
Well, just like you said, people, I always hear this about federal government. They're abusing their power. And they might be, and that might be something to stand up against. But if Nancy Pelosi abuses her power slightly, and a police officer who's behind me going down the road abuses their power slightly, one's going to affect me a whole lot more than the other one. Like, this is stuff you need to be on top of. I'm not saying give up on Nancy, but if you can get in a local, this stuff is going to affect your life, or maybe your kids, if you have kids one day that are out driving around or hanging out, and they think, oh, well, that's so-and-so's kid, and he was a bad seed, so now we're going to start running this and running that and looking over here and stuff that they're not allowed to access. It's all laid out what they can and can't do.
Absolutely. And this sums it up the very best. If you came home from eating, if you went out to eat tonight and you came home and there were 4 police officers in your house, and one met you out front and said, whoa, you're not going in there, we're searching your property. And you're like, whoa, what the hell? What the fork? Let me see a search warrant.
Right.
They're like, yeah, we don't have a search warrant. We're just, smelling your wife's panties and looking through your drawers, and we'll be out of here in a moment.
Right. Checking to see what your weapons are in your safe.
Sure. Those cops would be ran out of town with pitchforks and fire, because that would be a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment, and nobody would stand for it.
Right.
This is no different.
It's the same premise, same thing.
It's the exact same thing. It's the Fourth Amendment violation. It just, people's like, well, this didn't harm you. You weren't harmed. Well, okay, let me just take your gun from you then, because it's just your Second Amendment. Let me just shut you up, because that's just your First Amendment. No, we were harmed because the Constitution says I was harmed.
That's the way this stuff erodes, is a little bit at a time. They don't come out and say, okay, we're taking this. They take it a little bit at a time, and if someone doesn't stand up, then it's gone before you know it.
Look, I'm just doing what Doug has been telling me for the last week.
That's right.
Doing something about it.
I actually had 4 Navy SEALs issued as my son's school teachers. They've been smoking him and PTing him every day, but thank God we got some frogmen up here teaching English.
Right. Oh, I love it. That's great. Somebody asked in the chat a little bit ago how much between the settlement, and I want to make sure that I'm clear. The police that were doing this they were not the same police from the town where the settlement occurred. These are 2 different communities. The community where the first ordeal occurred was Winchester, Indiana, and this is Muncie, Indiana. So
new corruption, new town.
Yeah, right. More, yeah. So I want to make that very clear.
Sure.
So, this happened, and we found that there were others. Now, one of the things that we need to make sure that it's very clear is that the people might say, well, why would the police be doing this for an elected official? The elected official at the time sat on the city council, was the chair of the finance committee, who was in charge of the purse strings of their union contract negotiations.
Sure.
But also, her stepson was a police officer.
Oh, wow.
So
could they see at the time? Could they see which officers ran? Did they log in?
Yes.
So they know exactly which. It wasn't just like the department violated. They knew this officer pulled it. Well, that's good.
Yes. And I'll say this because it's an active lawsuit currently. There's some things I can say because of the news, and there's some things I cannot say.
Sure.
But I'll just say this: 2 of the defendants have the same last name.
Right.
And one of them's a police officer, and one of them is not.
Right. The other, just to be clear, the other people that they were hassling were opponents of hers. Were they running against her, or were they podcast hosts? What were they?
2 of them were opponents during the election and had spoken out. The 4th was the fire chief of the city and was the election chairperson of one of the other people.
Right, I got you. So a chairperson sitting on the to get them elected, and 2 opponents, and you. And someone asked, "Are you under one of those military NDAs from Charlie Ward? Is that the quantum NDA? I don't know if you guys know about those, but."
Well, somebody also in the chat earlier said they're going to need to verify all this through birth certificates, and I was going to bring mine tonight, but I had already cashed mine in earlier.
That's good. Yeah, you got to destroy it upon receipt of the money. I've heard that. Yeah. There's some type of ceremony where you dance nude in your front yard and burn it. I don't know how they even know that you did it, but you got to do it.
Right before the ascension, and as Nick said, here in short order, all of this last 50 years is going to be erased anyways.
That's how would you even know? You're going to be -10, right? I'm proud to celebrate that.
I know it's going to be so amazing. I can't wait. So that is, that's basically brought us up to current. We're still waiting for, this to be, ran through. But in the meantime, I have, like I said, I've helped other communities. I've done other things in other communities, and and beyond. So
I got a couple questions.
Sure.
So that person, I guess, didn't win election, or they're not a sitting official right now, right?
Right. So,
okay, and go ahead.
Well, basically, this was 2019 when this first occurred. They won that primary, but they went from being the first. They went from being the first place ticket runner to being the last place ticket runner. So they were definitely defeated in the general election.
So they were looking to be the #1 slot, and then they come in last after this come out, I assume. And so this was like this helped your show. I mean, like, obviously you didn't like set this up to help your show, but it gave you credibility. You had a storyline to tell. It to put your name out there. You got the news coverage. It actually propelled you into what you have now, right?
Oh, absolutely. It definitely, gave credibility, I guess, to what I'm saying, because if you're just out here saying things and nothing's happened, you're just out here saying something. It gave a little bit of credibility. I still, and I always tell people, I'm going to say something that pisses you off at some point. You should. There's nobody that you should agree with 100% of the time.
Sure.
Hell, you don't agree with your wife 100% of the time. I don't agree with myself 100% of the time. I'm able to change my mind. So,
right.
If you say that you agree with me 100% of the time, you're a liar. Also, if you say you disagree with me 100% of the time, you're a liar. So it's got to be somewhere in between there. And I don't do anything personal. I don't attack anybody personally. It's all political. Politics is not for the faint of heart. It is a full contact sport.
Right.
And you're going to win and you're going to lose. And the thing is, you have to realize that if this is going on if you're involved or not. You can either
Sure.
choose not to be involved and go about your life, and I would have less gray hair, and I would probably be quite a bit happier.
Right, right.
But you also, you've got to be, you got to say, are you one of those people that can just sit back and do that? I can't.
Yeah, for sure. I'm glad you stood up and had a voice and brought this to the forefront. Whether I mean, I know it probably come with a little bit of suffering, and it was aggravation and time consumed and whatever. But I mean, it brought this, and this isn't just going on where you live. I mean, this is going on everywhere. You can basically assume that someone's doing. Even in our small county, just tiny things like who gets the bid to. We've got brick walkways through downtown that like cross the street, like street crossing areas, and the same company's gotten the bid for like 5 times in a row. Then they found out they weren't even posting the bid publicly, like they were just assuming this company was because they said the first time they posted it, only one company bid, so they just started giving it to them yearly and didn't put it out for bids. Hell, just small stuff like that. So happens that my cousin sits on the board of mayor and alderman, and I'm the one who got it. I own the company. I'm glad it came to the forefront. Somebody's got to stand up, and if it's going on in these communities, you can guarantee it's going on in your all's communities. And the thing you said about politics being like full contact or whatever, politics is the way that I look at the internet. And I know everybody else doesn't look at the internet this way, but the way I look at the internet is if you're going to put yourself out there, then you're also open for anybody else who has any type of claim or like if I put an opinion on the internet, I've got to be ready for everybody who agrees, who disagrees, who calls me a liar, who says this is false, who says that, and I've got to be able to back that up. Same way has been and should continue to be in politics. If you put out a claim out there, you better be ready to back it up, or if you're running on a certain principle or issue, you better be able to hold that line. People ought to be able to call that out. And when we start destroying that, that's when we lose, freedom of speech and the ability to even elect officials. Like it gets out of hand. So I'm glad that all this. Well, I'm not glad that it happened to you, but I'm glad it came to light. It seems like you're straightening up your local area at least a little bit.
Well, and I get emails, I get phone calls. I've got a studio line, a studio number. I get emails from people from all 50 states saying, "Hey, I've started listening. I've got this going on." And what you just said about the bids, that's what I was going to tell anybody. Wherever you live, first of all, this is the number one thing. The biggest thing that you can do to help your community is make sure that your local government, your city council, your county commissioners, those people, your board of public works who assign the bids and things like that, you make sure that those meetings are being live streamed. It's 2021. They should have them on Facebook. They should have them on a website. You should be able to go to those meetings in person, or you should be able to watch them from your home if you so choose.
I actually here locally volunteered to come live stream our stuff when some stuff was going on with the sheriff's department here locally and lack of funding and pulling their insurance. And we were a real small town, so we don't have a lot of money to offer. But one thing we did cover was insurance for you and your family. That was one of the benefits, and they decided that was too expensive. I volunteered to come live stream the stuff, and they told me that they had a guy who was in the process of getting set up. They wouldn't let me live stream officially, so I just went down there with the cell phone and started live streaming it. They can't stop me. So
right. That's the thing. Anybody that goes can live stream. They cannot stop you from live streaming. You can go there and do that. They should do that. And when they say, well, we don't have the ability to do this, it's going to cost too much. Look, it doesn't cost anything to create a Facebook page, small town, city, USA, whatever. It doesn't take, any money I guarantee you they've got a webcam. I guarantee you they've got a cell phone or a laptop or a tablet that the city or town pays for. set that up in the back room. It doesn't have to be the best quality. It just has to be the to be able to record it and live stream that out. So that's the number one thing. But then if your community already does that, watch how the bids work in your community. And I guarantee you, if you watch them whether it's once a week or once a month or twice a month, if you watch them 5 times in a row, you will hear the same company's name 3 or more times. Like Will said, that is definitely something that happens. And they're picking winners and losers when they're doing that, because I guarantee you that there are more than just one company that does bricklayer work or does cement work in your community,
Yeah, they were like local bigger cities around us have a resolution they've passed or whatever that they post them for so long in a local paper and blah blah blah. Our local town, the only way you even know about them is if you show up at a meeting. They say we're putting out a bid in 3 weeks for this or 3 months or whatever, and that's the only way you know about them. And the people who show up and these people that own the companies that their uncle sits on the board of mayor and alderman will brag about it, like, oh yeah, I get all those because Uncle John blah 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 whatever. You said one more thing that I don't know about, and I was going to ask you about if you could just tell us the broad story. Did you say that cops have been in blown up police cars in your local town? What was that about?
Yeah. So basically, there was a he's a friend of mine who is a retired sheriff's deputy whose father was a retired Muncie City Police captain who back in the it was either the late 70s or early 80s was leaving work one day and got inside his, I don't know, I think he was inside of a take-home car, and I think the story is he stopped to light a cigarette and he dropped something outside, which caused him to leave his door open, and he started the car and blew up. The car.
Oh, wow.
It was a car bomb. And it did not kill him because his door was open, so it blew him from the car. Had he not dropped his whatever and he closed his door, it would have more than likely killed him. But it definitely, I mean, that happened, and they never really found any of they never found anybody guilty for this. And matter of fact, there's a book about this exact incident that I'm talking about. The book is by Baird Davis, who is the son of the police officer whose car was blown up. Baird Davis himself grew up and became a sheriff's deputy, but Baird Davis wrote a book, and I'm not connected to this in any way. I don't get anything from this. The book is called The Middletown Myth, based on true events, and it's a 2004 book. And the little blurb says the Middletown Myth. That's what Muncie's called. We were in a study back in the 60s called the Middletown Studies. It was a nationwide thing.
Right.
But the Middletown Myth brings to life the raw and gritty underbelly of police department that once was. It has been said that the line between the mind of a criminal and that of a policeman is a very fine line. This story shows a son's dedication to finding what is true in the midst of deception surrounding a profound act of malice towards his father. As he follows the story to its end, he remains true to the sincerity and the sense of justice that defined him as a child. In this journey, this son of a city cop finds answers to long-sought questions. In the end, the line between good and evil becomes more clear, but not without a dozen mysteries being solved first. Not recommended for children.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it's called The Middletown Myth. You can find it wherever books are sold, I imagine.
Sure, I'm gonna check that out for sure. I guess that's kind of the end of the story so far, right? Still under lawsuit, still got the podcast, still going on and processing that. So, do you have anything? There's one thing I want to say first. I'm going to look up that because that was my first video that kind of took off before I left YouTube. That was I was on YouTube for a while, and then I went to Twitch, D-Live, and other places because YouTube was censoring me, and I ended up back here because it was a less of all the evils. But I'm going to look up that audio clip, and I think I'm going to have you back on, and you can listen to it with us. It's literally a fight during the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting. It'll be fun to do. So I'd like to have you back on, but before you go, you want to tell everybody how to find you. You told me that you're going to be coming to YouTube soon, right? But right now you're on all the podcasting platforms, correct?
Yeah. So basically, wherever you listen to podcasts at, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Radio Public, Apple Podcast or iTunes, Google Podcast, all of those, you can find me. My home link is perception.fireside.fm, perception.fireside.fm. Will's got it in the...
I just dropped it in the chat, too. It's in the description and in the chat.
It's there. There is my audio podcast. It's called Perception is Reality with Kristopher H. Bilbrey. And then I also do a live video episode on Facebook periodically where I talk, it's not as produced, and that's just on my Facebook page, which is Kristopher Bilbrey on Facebook, or facebook.com/Bilbrey318. So
I got you. Yeah, check him out on Facebook, and if you don't know, I'm sure most of you guys, especially on the backup channel, have seen it. But I did an interview with him. It went really well. We talked about the grifters and stuff, and how they're affecting even small local politics. So make sure you check him out. Like I said, I listen to it all the time. Where I started late, there's still a backlog of episodes that I just let play while I'm working on something or hanging out or whatever to the podcast. And if you need any help when you come to YouTube, let me know. We'll get you set up with especially if you're going to do it live. I'm not the greatest editor or recorded videos, but I'm pretty good at live streaming. If you need any help with that, let us know.
Yeah, very good. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man, thank you for coming on. Everybody, make sure you check them out. I dropped the link. That's the link to the book as well. I just dropped the Middletown Myth based on true events. But guys, thank you for joining us. I'll be back in a little bit. Make sure you check out Kristopher's stuff, and make sure you subscribe and all that nonsense. And we'll see you guys in a little bit. Have a good evening, and we'll see you in a couple hours, maybe. Yeah, about an hour and a half, 2 hours. We'll see you guys.
No damn research, they be working copy on. Cox came first, ninth inning, second string, and they acting like they know hitters. Assholes throwing bullshit and runs to the shitter. All this nonsense on my conscience, it's hard to sleep at night. Who the fuck is in my window with this time of the night? These parasites, these leeches, with all their secret meetings, teaching all you fucking cretins about baby-eating heathens. Believing in reason with no meaning is bullshit. Will Bird motherfuckers out here busting the grifts. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in them bets, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in them bets, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet.
You don't have those guts, cause you're a pussy. You're a pussy wearing aviator glasses in your mother's basement, and I won't even give out your dime store handle, because that's really pathetic.
Why do you guys have the timer going? That's a little ridiculous, okay?
If this douchebag.
Have a good night, everybody. I'll see you in a little bit. About an hour and a half. We'll be back. See you guys. Have a good one.
On this planet, by name, and tell them exactly who they are, and tell them the rest of the world who they are. You don't have the forking balls. You don't have the balls.
Okay, Scott. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in them bets, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in them bets, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. And they say that I'm a lunatic. Well, listen, bitch, I came equipped with a quick wit and a 6th sense for the stupid shit. Where my true believer? Y'all need Jesus. Praise the Lord, head to the extreme. All these false fucking prophets who profit off of gossip. Worshipping drums, cocking, begging for a throat deposit. Swinging fucking meat hammers like Thor in a thong. He's strapped to the shaft, beating his chest like he's King Kong. Starving for attention, I'ma make your gut burst. I'll be your huckleberry, I can quench that thirst. Baby eating lizard people, alien sex. What's next? Trump in a dress, fucking Flynn on his desk. A retard in a vest, climbing up 5G towers. Cause you told him if he did, he'd get fucking superpowers. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the bets, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the bets, you know that stage.
See you guys in a little bit.
You ain't